What is up, guys? Welcome back to Real Talk here. We're going into part number two, specifically talking about StarCraft. Now, Suppy, what kind of drew you to the game initially and what kept you around? I know your brother introduced you to it, but what kept you playing the game?
Well, the second time around when we were playing StarCraft, like I said before, we had started playing StarCraft, kind of moved on to other games, and then came back. And the reason we came back was because my brother found this boxer highlight video. And it was like one of those awesome micro videos where he did these insane tricks with all his units and everything, that doing things that we didn't even think was possible, and also introducing us to a scene that we didn't even know existed. We didn't even know anything about the 1v1 scene. We didn't know anything about the pro scene. And I think that is really what drew me to the game, that competitiveness, and just I was just really intrigued by the world of professional esports. It wasn't esports at the time, just professional StarCraft. And yeah, that's probably the reason I was drawn to the game.
Was your brother better than you at the game when you first started out?
Yeah, my brother was always better than me for quite a long time. Like I said, I was always second place to him in basically every single game I ever played. But eventually, I started playing on the Icy Cup ladder system and started improving month by month. And eventually, I was able to beat him for the first time. And that was actually a very, very proud moment for me because I had never beaten him before. And from then, it just kind of just skyrocketed from there.
That was kind of was that your first kind of step into competitive StarCraft 2, maybe? I mean, it is your brother, but I assume that was a big drive or push for you, was it not?
Yeah, it was definitely a big push for me. And after that, I kind of just after beating my brother, I kind of just got more and more enthralled by the game, and I got more and more into it. Uh, I wanted to keep improving. I met some cool people on my BattleNet community that I became good friends with. I started watching, WCG, and where I got introduced to DJ Wheat and Tasteless, who inspired me to do commentating. And so I just got more and more into StarCraft, and that's why I continued to compete, try and improve.
Was your brother someone that kind of pushed you to always get better at the game when you first started out, even after beating him?
Um, After beating him, I think he kind of just like was like, "Oh shit, he has a game, he can beat me," and he just stopped playing.
Did he really just cold quit the game?
Well, I don't think he quit the game for other reasons as well because he was going into college at the time, so he
Hmm.
was starting to not be as free as before as well.
Well, kind of going back to Brood War, was there anything in particular that perhaps thinking about those days is coming to mind that was just a good story or a good interaction that you had that you remember fondly?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of really, really fond memories of Brood War days. Most of them were LAN experiences, going to LANs. I went to my first Bay Area LAN and met a lot of my friends there. One thing that was actually really, really huge was I met some of my long, long time uh, community friends, ones who I'd known for like 4 or 5 years. We'd hang out in a little Ventrilo client and talk with each other all the time. And I went on a family trip with my family to Niagara Falls in Canada, and I actually met one of them there, which was really cool. And then even last year, I went to Finland, where one of them actually lives, and I went there for assembly, and I ended up meeting him there. So those were really, really cool experiences. Even though the second one's kind of more StarCraft 2, I guess, but he's one of my big Brood War friends, so that was a really cool experience.
Who were the kind of members of your crew back then? Just so if the people who want to know, I'm sure they know the names, but most of the time I don't think they're going to be that familiar. Correct?
Yeah, so one of them was Salve, who was involved on this website called SC2 and he's kind of known on the TL community with the kind of in a bad way, I guess, in some regards. There was like this little TL versus SC2 show match, and there was a little bit of hot words thrown around. And then the other one was an A minus Zerg, which is pretty freaking good. From Finland, he was Oz, and so some people might be familiar with him as well.
Do you, in a way, kind of? I mean, everyone has nostalgia about things in their life. Is there any nostalgia to kind of the days of Brood War and what once was the community. Do you ever miss that at all?
I definitely miss, a lot of the aspects of Brood War. It's very, very tight knit. Everybody knew each other. We would have little meetups in Washington, D.C., where I was for a couple summers. We would literally drive 40 minutes to like some random Korean barbecue place in Virginia, and then we would drive like an hour up to Mona's house, who's also known as Hazley Nut. She's the founder of CSL, and we'd like watch at like 3 a.m. We'd watch Pro League going on, and even like day nine ended up coming once. He was in the area like visiting his girlfriend or something, and he even joined us to our buffet and came and watched Pro League with us. And this is something we would do every single week. We would drive like hours. We'd get home at like 5 a.m., 5 or 6 a.m. And that was one thing that was really, really cool about the community then was that it was so tight knit and everybody was so close. But there's also a lot of really good new things about the community with StarCraft 2 now, obviously. Especially that it's so big now, especially there's so much more possible, so many more awesome events possible. So there is a little bit of nostalgia, but I think the current state of the community is also has its own benefits as well.
I've heard a couple stories of different interactions with maybe some more relevant StarCraft 2 names. The first one, we'll just go name by name here. Let's start with In Control. I know that you've had a history with him even prior to joining Team Evil Geniuses as well as StarCraft 2. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think what most people are probably referencing is when I faced him in the Team Liquid Attack #1, where I actually ended up beating him with like some mass speeding all in, and he tried to cannon rush me like 16 times in one game. And then afterwards, I made a commentary about it where I in controlled him and basically made a troll commentary where I made fun of him and everything. So
So we actually have this clip, and let's go ahead and just listen to it for a second. The name, while this is playing, is of course Superior Wolf Gosu versus In
He
Control
does play
TL
Zerg,
Noob.
but you know, it
And when
doesn't really
when was
matter
this?
much
This was
because
probably
I can
what,
defeat him
4 years ago?
any
I think it
matchup,
was made in
anytime.
2008.
It's just such an easy
yeah.
build, and you can see his probes
Definitely
come
go
down
watch the
really
video.
fast expand.
The YouTube
And
comments are
right now,
worth
I'm
it
just sending
alone
an early
if
I
you're in a
really know
trolling
Control's
mood.
gonna try and
Um,
do something cheesy because he knows he can't beat
what
me
about
straight up.
what about your
He
experience
knows, and
with
my
one
drones.
Greg Idra Fields?
So with Idra, I faced him in TL Attack #2. Ended up losing, so nothing too much expected there. I lost to his main race, whereas I beat In Control's off race back then. Um, but probably the biggest thing that most people know is I was really, really, uh, I don't know, douchebaggy to Idra, I guess. I really, really hated him for some reason, and I didn't really have a justified reason why, other than I thought he was BM, cocky, arrogant, blah 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 blah. I just had a huge, deep-seated hatred for him, and he ended up becoming like the foreigner hope when he won a tournament that allowed the winner to become part of Team Istro in Korea. So he was starting to train in Korea, and I still thought he was a terrible player. I hated him a lot, so I never missed a chance to flame him or take a shot at him. And he was going to be facing a Chinese player in some show match. And everybody's like, oh, it just got this easy. He's been in Korea for half a year. He must have improved a lot. He's the #1 foreigner now. And I was like, no, he's going to get stomped by F91. Like, he has no chance. He's so bad. And he did end up losing 4-1 or 4-2 or something. And I just went wild. I just went so crazy. I was like, see, I told you guys, what a horrible player. He's such a bad, cocky, arrogant asshole. Like, he should be like, I said some really bad things. I was like, he's such a bad example for our seed. He should be like removed or something. And you could find all these comments on Team Liquid. I haven't removed them or anything, but they're still there. And I was definitely, looking back on those, I feel like a huge asshat for doing it. But I've left them up there for posterity, I guess.
I know that a couple times, at least on Reddit, I've seen that people have dug those up. So I know that some people are aware of them. But I do want to go back to your YouTube for 1 second. And this is you. I guess the best way to start this out with is on Liquipedia. It is you are claimed to be one of the first, if not the first, YouTuber to ever do commentary. Is this a correct claim, or are they just kind of embellishing a little bit?
I'm as far as I'm aware, I was the first person to do commentaries and upload them on YouTube.
Okay.
There were some people who did like MP3 files, and you would listen to them
The
while
battle
watching a
reports
replay.
and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a listen here, and I just want to say the best comment is this is the best female StarCraft 2 cast or Brood War caster to ever have lived. Let's just take a listen, guys.
Okay, lagger.
You were 14 when this
So
happened. Let's
this game
just
is on Rise of the
make sure that everyone
Valkyries.
knows that.
Word is one of my friends, so I'm going to root for him.
You were casting Word, one of your friends.
And this is Protoss, Terran versus Protoss.
You sound completely different,
Protoss
Suppy.
being, purple, and
I'm not going to play the whole thing,
teal
but you guys should definitely go
being
give it a look. It's named Gosu Pylon
And
Block
right now,
on YouTube. And
people are sending an
it's only
early
got
probe out.
25 likes and
Looks like
121
it's maybe trying to crack
uh,
this
121
but
dislikes.
possibly,
So do
maybe
Suppy a
some
favor. Go upvote this. Go
strange,
give him a thumbs up. Help him out on YouTube because I think from what you were telling me, every single one of your videos is just like complete negative. It's like 10 up or likes and like 150 dislikes. Correct.
Yeah.
Oh God! Support Suppy, guys. Support Suppy. Go help him out on YouTube. All right, let's talk more about kind of the actual game. Did you play Brood War all the way up until StarCraft 2? Did you take intermittent breaks? What was kind of your, I guess, your StarCraft 2 lifestyle first starting out?
Yeah, I played Brood War all the way up until 2010. I believe beta already came out by then, and I was still playing Brood War because there was this big DC LAN and WCG 2010 coming up. So I was playing Brood War all the way up until SC2, and I think I only started playing SC2 when beta was, or when the official game was actually released. So
Really, you didn't
yeah.
even play the beta?
I don't think I got to play too much of the beta. From what I can recall, I'm not totally sure. Because I remember the first time I touched StarCraft 2, I was playing the campaign. And I don't think the campaign was out in the beta, right?
No,
So,
it was not. It was not.
yeah, so I only started after the beta ended.
Did you have a? I mean, I know you were competitive, but you said you competed on the IC Cup ladder in Brood War. Was that kind of your first step into competitive play?
Yeah, basically every season I would just continue playing iCup and improving, and that's kind of how I was competitive in Brood War.
When you started out in StarCraft 2, did you kind of you were in high school at the time, or were you already in college?
StarCraft 2, I believe, I was a senior in high school, I think.
Okay, so I'm sure you probably had a lot of free time and spent all the time playing StarCraft 2, correct?
Maybe.
What?
I had like anti-senioritis.
Oh, okay, okay.
I took like all AP classes,
Oh,
and
you overachiever, you
then
sucker.
I don't know why I did that.
Did, I mean, when you first started playing, were you kind of already setting goals in your mind, like I want to be, like I can actually be a professional player, or when did those seeds kind of start to plant in your mind?
I mean, I had always, I started off the first season Grandmaster, and I had always been able to do decently well against some of the top players, but I never really thought about becoming a pro gamer, really, until WCS 2012, uh, when I basically went to Anaheim and killed a lot of people, pro gamers, which I had never done before.
Do you think that was kind of the biggest stepping stone for all this to kind of just snowball into what it is today?
Yeah, I think that was the big turning point because before that I was pretty much just playing for fun. I would take 2 month breaks, 3 month breaks all the time, and come back be really rusty. And after that, it was all really spurred on by WCS 2012, which basically motivated me to become really competitive. And the aftershocks of qualifying for WCS 2012 was doing well in MLG Anaheim, and that kind of spurred me on from there.
So a lot of people are always, I think the number one asked question in esports is how do I either become a caster, a pro player, a community figure, anything like that? Like, how do I do this? From your perspective as a player, well, how did you kind of climb the competitive ladder? Was it just playing more and eventually just get recognized? What advice do you give to people for that?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is obviously to improve your skill and just continue playing and getting better. I eventually, you also want to make friends with people because eventually I met this guy and he introduced me to this team he was joining. It was called VP. So that was the first team I joined, and it was the first one that actually paid us. We got like $5 per every clan war match win or something, and they gave us like a little bit of gear, and that's basically how I started getting into it. And from then on, we merged with Check Six, which was just a little bit higher of a team, a step up, I guess. And then we started competing in team leagues and stuff. So really, what it comes down to is just first of all, you need to get to the level, get to the competitive level, and then start networking, join a team, and then work your way up from there. It's really all comes down to improving, and then you need to get a good result. You need to have like a breakout performance, and thankfully I was able to have one in MLG Anaheim. But that's what's really gonna help you join one of those bigger teams.
Maybe this is a little bit of an unfair question, but do you think that kind of when you entered into StarCraft 2, it was perhaps easier to break into the scene as a pro player, or these days is it easier now? Like, what is your opinion on that?
So I think the easiest time it was to break out as a pro player was probably when StarCraft 2 just came out. That was the easiest time, and it's gotten progressively harder every single year. WCS 2012 was a really, really good opportunity to break out because it was region locked. So basically, you could make a name for yourself. Whereas now, WCS 2013, I think it's almost impossible for anybody to make a name for themselves, especially North American players. So it was easier for me than it is for people in 2013. But I think the easiest time was probably when StarCraft 2 just came out, where you could really become really famous very quickly.
I want to just jump straight into the actual game. But what are you struggling with most right now within the game? Whether it's certain matchup, whether it's Hellbats, like what is really giving you a hard time?
Um, I think the big thing for me is the game is now a lot more dynamic than it was in Wings of Liberty, and I'm someone who doesn't do so well like improvising certain builds or reacting to really weird situations. And that's I think why I was a lot better in Wings of Liberty was it was kind of all figured out. So every single time I scouted, I would know exactly what my opponent was doing and exactly what I needed to do. So it's been a little bit harder with Heart of the Swarm, but it's also been more fun. Um, I think Zerg has a much weaker later game, so I have problems, with those mass Void Ray like Death Ball armies with Storm and everything. Uh, and against Terran, yeah, the Hellbat drops. I mean, they are nerfing them, thankfully. So I mean, we'll have to see.
Is there any one thing in particular that maybe not crying for nerf or anything like that, but that you don't understand right now? You don't understand how to beat it, or you just have really, really big problems with it?
Um, I'd have to just say my Zerg versus Protoss in general is something I don't really know like that well. If you notice, I've been losing almost all my ZVPs in tournament games, which is I don't know. It's kind of like I have a roadblock for it or something. I've historically done pretty well, and especially in practice, I do pretty well as EVP. But every single time I play a tournament match, especially against North American Protosses, I've lost like every single one of them in Heart of the Swarm. I think I'm like 2 and like 10 or something. So that's something I just can't figure out for some reason.
Is there anything you can pinpoint in that matchup specifically, or is it just kind of in general?
In general, I think it's probably, it's really hard to scout them now. With the Mothership Core, they can deny scouting. With gateway openings, there's so many different builds they can do. And I think Protoss' strength is that potential to all in or the potential to hide tech and do different types of all ins that require completely different responses. So I think that's the big thing that I have problems with Protoss.
What do you think some of your biggest kind of skill plateaus are? I mean, is there anything that you've kind of had problems with and then eventually overcome? And if so, what steps did you take to overcome them?
So yeah, and there's always times where I've had plateaus, and I think you just overcome it by sheer practice and also by talking with others, figuring out what you're doing wrong. I remember in CVP, my CVP in Wings of Liberty was actually my worst matchup as well, until one of my friends or one of my teammates was like, "Why don't you just make 16-minute broodlords and make like 20 broodlords and then make infestors?"
Who was that
uh,
asshole? Who told you to do that?
check six perfect. And after I did that, that was right before Anaheim. I learned that 2 weeks before Anaheim. I went to Anaheim. I beat I beat every Protoss I played, and my ZVP was like suddenly my best matchup all of a sudden.
Oh, Suppy, you're part of the you were part of the problem. This is your fault. This is your
No,
fault.
but this is why you got to talk. You got to talk to your friends, figure out what you're doing wrong. That's how you get past plateaus, I think, and continuing to practice.
Do you think it personally is it almost impossible to really know your strengths and weaknesses unless someone else is kind of helping you figure those out?
It's a lot easier to see things when someone else you have another set of eyes, because when you're looking at it, you can't look at it from an objective standpoint and just see all the mistakes because they're so ingrained in you that you don't even realize they're mistakes. But then someone else can point them out, and it's a lot easier for you to figure out why you're doing things wrong.
To ask a little bit of a harder question, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but I would assume that there are a lot of people out there who are kind of on the cusp of perhaps going from master to GM, and they're just kind of more of a solitary player. What's the best way for them just to branch out and find those practice partners? Is there anything specific to do, or is it just be social and make friends?
I mean, one thing that I've always done is whenever I'm playing ladder games, just chat with the other person. Sometimes they're going to be like really BM or don't want to chat or whatever, but I find most people generally like to chat to you, and people are really friendly and cool. So you can get a lot of practice partners just by being friendly yourself.
Over the course of time in StarCraft 2, who would you say your best practice partners are or were?
My best practice partner by far was Scarlet because when I played her, I felt like my ZVZ became my best matchup towards the end of Wings of Liberty. But another really good practice partner is Sasquatch, who always helps me before like every single tournament. And I have a lot of practice partners, so it's kind of hard to list them all. But I just want to say thanks to all of them. And we have our little Zerg chat group where we all help each other practice and figure out builds. It's really good to create things that you can, little like chat rooms or whatever that you can discuss things with your friends and your teammates and your partners and figure things out. So that's one thing that I also have.
Now, on the flip side of, I guess, friendliness, do you have any specific rivals, or at least people that you consider to be rivals within the StarCraft 2 universe?
I'm not sure if I have any rivals.
Perhaps
Hello
any
Kitty.
players that you just enjoy beating the shit out of on a consistent basis?
I like to beat Hello Kitty, but he beats me a lot, so that's why it's a rivalry because it's kind of close.
Sure.
I don't know why I keep losing to him. It's annoying. It's frustrating. I get mad when I lose, right, to him, because it's yeah, it is kind of like a rivalry. We like goad each other on and stuff. Although we're actually really good friends. Um, I think me and Muslim is a little bit of a rivalry, maybe, except I go like 0-20 against him in practice, and then I like somehow beat him in MLG. So I don't know. I guess you could consider that a rivalry.
Well, what's been your hardest and potentially your biggest loss, kind of in your StarCraft 2 professional career thus far?
It's definitely against Parting in Blizzard World Championships, where I lost 2-3 after being up 2-0. That was obviously the biggest loss because it was on the biggest stage. Blizzard World Championships was the biggest tournament I've ever been in. And it was also the hardest because, like, just looking back at it, I just had to change a couple things and I would have won, and it just really sucked. I ended up losing, and I went over to him. And I was like, "Oh, good luck." I didn't really feel anything at the time, and he was like crying after he won. I don't know why, but he was crying, and so I went over. I was like, "Good luck. I hope you win." Blah 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 blah. And then the next day is when I like really felt it. I was like, "Wow, if I just won one more game, I would have gone on to face Sen. My ZVZ was like unbeatable at the time. I felt like I could have beaten Sen, and I would have been in the grand finals. Like it could have been life changing because that was the tournament where I was like, if I get top two, I'm definitely gonna take time off school. I'm definitely gonna take a break. Um, but like just I was so close, yet yeah, I was just so close.
Can you encapsulate that feeling maybe a little bit more? I mean, was it just soul crushing for you the next day, where you just kind of sitting in New York without knowing what to do?
Shanghai, Shanghai.
Oh, Shanghai. Sorry. I was thinking WCS America. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I laid in bed for like 2 hours just thinking about it and thinking about every single game. I couldn't get the games out of my head. And then here's the kicker. I woke up, I logged onto my computer, and there's like this huge interview, or there's this interview on the front page of Reddit where Parting's like shit talking me and saying how bad a player I am, like totally like it's just it like made it like 10 times worse, you know?
What was that feeling? Embarrassment? Was it rage? Like what would you kind of classify it as? Or just upset at yourself, maybe?
I mean, I was definitely upset at myself because during the games I didn't realize how big of a deal it would have been if I had beaten him, and I only realized that afterwards. And I think if I had just taken a little bit of time to relax, figure things out, talk with Nurchio and Scarlet and everybody who was sitting next to me. Like I didn't ask them for any tips during the game, which I find really really helpful. Um, I could have possibly won, and then it's also just it's a little bit of anger against Parting because he was the one who was crying after he won, and then all of a sudden he does like a complete 180 and like starts shit talking me. After I like gave him a hug and everything, I was like, I really hope you win the tournament. I was like being so sincere with him, and he just like backstabs me in the back, and yeah, it was a really tough feeling.
I guess that kind of leads into the next set of questions, and that's kind of talking about the community and its interaction with the players. Do you think that players are wrong for reading into what the community is saying about them, whether it's a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis? Is that something that pro players should just ban themselves from doing altogether?
We actually had this discussion yesterday on another talk show that I do, and
Inside the game, you can say
yeah,
it.
inside the EG.
Inside the EG. There you go.
Yeah. And Jeff in control was basically adamant that you should filter everything out and not read any of it in an ideal world. Whereas, like I've mentioned before, I feel like it kind of is like the driving motivation for me because it's like something that feeds me. It's something that I enjoy reading. I literally read every single comment about me. So like to all those people who are writing stuff about me, like know that I am reading it. I read every single tweet and everything.
Don't tell them that.
Don't tell. I'm not reading anything. Why not tell them that?
I mean, this is up to you. So please continue. Please continue. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, okay. But yeah, like it can be really bad if it's bad comments, and if it's good comments, it can sometimes make you complacent. But in regards to the bad comments, I kind of use it as motivation. I want to like disprove them and show that they're wrong. So that can be motivation. And for the good comments, I don't know. It's just something. It's like one of the reasons I even play. Like, I want to see what people are thinking and what their opinions are. And I couldn't I wouldn't be able to keep myself from reading all the comments.
Perhaps this is too personal of a question, but has there been a particular comment? Maybe the parting one is the perfect example of something that you wish you had not have read or had not have seen that just impacted you so much that you were just kind of distraught after it, even if it was just the littlest comment in the world.
I don't think I've ever had that. Like even with the parting thing, I feel like I'd prefer to have known about it because Otherwise, I'm just in the dark, you know. If it already happened, I should know. I want to know about everything, you know.
You don't feel that to be somewhat detrimental to you as a player? That I mean, it seems like you can kind of consolidate it somewhat mentally, where you're not letting it affect your play. It doesn't, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think I get too negatively affected by, you know, negative comments. If anything, like I said, like the parting comment, it like gets me pissed. Like, so if I ever face parting again, I want to beat him like so bad. Do some, yeah.
Show match potential right there. Just saying to any event organizer. Show match potential for sure. What about some? I mean, you obviously you read a lot of the community, whether it's Team Liquid or RSC. How do you feel about it? The community just kind of talking about other people or some of these other kind of drama posts or anything like that. Are you the guy that's sitting there F5ing and wanting to see what everyone's saying, or do you kind of shy away from stuff like that?
I think I would be someone who would be F5ing the whole time, and that's something that I think is a waste of my time. That I shouldn't be doing that, but it's like one of the ways I procrastinate, and I think that kind of drama is, on the whole, probably unproductive for the whole scene, because that kind of negative drama kind of just makes a negative aura throughout the whole community. But that is something that I do F5 a lot. It's basically like if there was a live news report of like some bombing in the Boston Marathon or something, and people like constantly want to see what's going on. So I guess I just instead of that, for me, my news source would be like Reddit or something, and I'd be F5ing.
Well, kind of wrapping up this segment here, two or three more questions. What were some of the, and this is one of the community questions from Reddit. What were some of the most challenging and or maybe frustrating points in becoming kind of who you are now as a player?
I'd say before I came on EG, it was basically lack of consistent playing. I would take huge breaks from the game and never really focus. Uh, One of the big motivation losses that I had, or I had a huge motivation loss after my BWC loss, because I felt like that was the biggest tournament, and all the other tournaments suddenly felt so small after going to Blizzard World Championship that I kind of lost motivation, and I really had to remotivate myself somehow after BWC. So that was definitely a very challenging time. And I think in the beginning of 2013, I had some pretty bad results. And I think that was probably one of the reasons.
Someone else was asking if you could make a change to one unit from every race, what would they be? And this is kind of a lengthy question, so take your
This one
time.
take a while. I have some cool ideas.
Sure, let's hear them. Let's hear them. Let's let Blizzard hear them, Suppy.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I want to preface this with I don't think balance. I don't think the balance is that bad right now. I think the game is, on the whole, decently balanced. Obviously, I think it should be a little bit better for Zerg, but overall, it seems to be okay. And one design philosophy I'm really into is buffing units, and I think this is an approach that Blizzard has been taking with Heart of the Swarm, and I think it's been working very effectively because it makes the game a lot more interesting. So the key things I want to do is make the boring units like the Roach or Corruptor or the Hellbat and try and make them more interesting. So first one for Zerg, let's say a change for Zerg. I was thinking making a Corruptor more interesting. How can we do that? There was this cool thread about loading Banelings into Spore Crawlers and being able to shoot out of a Spore Crawler like that, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea, but maybe we could incorporate that with a Corruptor. So I was thinking you could load Banelings into a Corruptor, and maybe you could load like 4 Banelings into the Corruptor, and you can move it forward and use it as like a huge bomb in the air if you want, or you can shoot them, and whatever direction you shoot them from, it'll launch the Banelings like in the air and like land in a certain radius. So like if the enemy shoots them and if the enemy shoots your Corruptor as you're trying to move to them, your Banelings could backfire and shoot onto you. But if you position it really, really well and like sneak around or something or have it on the side and shoot the Baneling or shoot the Corruptor and kill the Corruptor, it'll like launch the Banelings onto their air army. And I think this is really good because it's going to promote the other person splitting up their army, and promotes a lot of micro tricks,
So I'll play devil's advocate for 1 second. What
Yeah.
happens if you just load up banelings into a corruptor, then drop them on a mineral line early on in the game? How do they stop that?
Well, it's not gonna be like a drop ship, so you can't undo it, I guess.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, if you can just load up banelings in a corruptor and fly them over to your enemy's
Well, like
mineral
it's
line.
air only. It's air only. So
Okay,
like,
it's air only. There you go. There you go.
yeah, I didn't want to make it ground based
Okay.
because that's. I don't know if you saw the spore crawler. Like,
Right, right. No, I did. I did.
yeah, it'd be like that sort of.
Okay, okay. What about Terran and Protoss? Unless you have more Zerg.
Okay, so I came up one for each race. I think medevac. It should not be able to turn while it's boosting, so it makes it so they have to actually like figure out where they want to go before they can boost, and increase the boost cooldown because right now I feel like they could boost in and then stim and they boost out right away. So those are two nerfs, but I think there could be potential for buffs too because, like I said, you should be buffing units as well and making them more interesting. So I was thinking maybe if you boost in a straight line. Maybe behind the medevac, it'll make like this little napalm thing that can like slow enemy units down, or
Okay.
do like small damage over time. So like this would be really cool because if you're trying to micro away, you can like boost perfectly like over their mineral line and like it'll like damage all their drones, or like if there's a flock of mutas coming at you and they didn't split their mutas, they're just in like the huge ball that they're normally in. If you boost at the correct angle, you can like get them all in the napalm and like slow them down. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Okay. All right. What about Protoss?
Protoss, the definitely the most boring unit for me is the Void Ray because it literally has like all you do is press a button and then its skill is activated, and it's just an A move unit. It's a really stupid unit. So I think if it has a single use spell that has a 5 second delay, and your enemy can like, because I wanted to make it so the Void Rays like little beam things are incorporated. So it has a 5 second delay. All the beam things would align. It would shoot like this massive like splash damage thing, but it's like a 5 second delay, and they can see it coming. So, or not 5 second, but maybe like 2 seconds or something.
Kind of
3 seconds.
Yamato cannon-ish, but not on a single target. Is that what you're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
at? Okay.
But just like on the ground, and like they have to dodge it. I don't know. It's something cooler. It can only be used once, so you can't have like infinite of these. But and it does like massive, massive damage. So if it actually hits, like it's insane. So it makes because I think you need to make things that have the potential to do huge, huge amounts of damage because that's what makes the game exciting. Because that's why Storm isn't as exciting as it was in Brood War because it's so much more nerfed. It's kind of just like, oh, you just storm everywhere and like it does some damage. But I think if you have this like pretty hard to use thing because it has like a 3 second delay and your enemy can see it, it's going to rely on your enemy trying to figure out where it's going to land and dodging it, as well as you trying to predict where they're going to try and predict where it's going to go and then try and like get them and then you blow up their whole army. I don't know.
There you go.
I think those are some cool ideas by me.
There you go. I'm sure Reddit and Team Liquid will definitely pick those apart and tell you all the reasons why you're wrong or why you're right. You never know. You never know what they're going to do that day. He continues on in the same question. A lot of people are against the idea of Swarm Host and Zerg producing quote-unquote free units. What are your thoughts on Swarm Hosts, and do you think they will need a change as players get more accustomed to them?
Yeah, I think free units are kind of a bad game design. And I think the reason Blizzard tried to incorporate it was to make the Zerg swarmy feeling that we're supposed to have. But the problem is we max out so quickly that we don't have like huge armies anymore. And that's why we need those free units. But I don't like the idea of them. I think right now, balance-wise, they seem to be okay, but they're really, really boring, and nobody really likes to watch them in most cases, especially against Protoss. So do I think they'll need a change? Balance-wise, no, but I think in terms of making the game more interesting, we should get a change. And honestly, I feel like if it was literally just the lurker, it would be so much better, but I don't think Blizzard's going to be down to do that.
All right, all right. Well, that is going to do it for this segment of Real Talk with SC2. When we come back in segment 3, we will be talking about evil geniuses, some more general questions, and wrapping up this episode of Real Talk. So, guys, we'll see you next time. Thank you all for watching. We're out.